Greetings and welcome to another edition of the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, on YouTube. This is the Red Pill Diaries, and I'm your host, Rashid. And once again, I'm in the parking lot of a Walmart. I hate going to Walmart. So one of my kids is up in there handling some stuff. But I wanted to come to you all. I know the name of the video brought some of you here, and it says live, the Kerch Bridge Attack. What will be Russia's response? Now, I want to talk about multiple things that are happening around the same time this attack takes place and why this attack is taking place. Okay, because actually, I got the alert that the attack took place last night. It was late last night when I got the alert. So, but it's making the rounds today, and we also have to remember that Russia is a little bit ahead of us. I think Russia has like 12 time zones. It's so huge. It's like almost 3 times the size of the United States. Russia is huge. All right. So while I'm talking to you all, I'll be looking down because I have my trusted second cell phone, and there are a few things that I want to talk to you about. Let me go to. All right. Now, we're going to go to this one first because this is very important. This one is very, very, very important. Okay. This is what I put in the search engine for you all so that you can do it yourself. I put in Dmitry Medvedev says striking Crimea is an act of war. I put that in there because I remembered Medvedev saying that. Excuse me, I butchered his name. Medvedev saying that. I remember him saying that. So Reuters, a British propaganda news organization, that's the first article that pops up when you Google what I just told you to Google. And the headline is this: Russia's Medvedev attack on Crimea will ignite Judgment Day response. Now, why is that part of the discussion of what we're talking about? It is because the area in question is recognized as part of being part of Crimea. Okay, the area that seceded from Ukraine and rejoined the Russian Federation. Okay, and in this article, I'm reading for the first time with you all. I just Googled it, see if I could Google up something that was pertaining to something that Medvedev said. So we're going to go into the article, and you have to be kind of leery of some of the stuff that comes out of Western media outlets. So in the article, this was July 17th, 2022, not 2023. This article was written July 17th, 2022, roughly almost a year ago today. And it says, the refusal of Ukraine and Western powers to recognize Moscow's control over Crimea poses a systemic threat for Russia, and any outside attack on the region will prompt a Judgment Day response, former President Dmitry Medvedev said on Sunday. Russia annexed the Black Sea Peninsula of Crimea from Ukraine in 2014 after a pro-Moscow president in Kiev was toppled amid mass street protests. They don't tell you that it was a coup. They don't tell you that. They don't tell you that he was toppled because of a Western-funded, Western-organized, Western-controlled, and Western-dominated coup. They don't say that part in Reuters. They leave those facts out. That's to be guessed at. It's just to make you believe that he was ousted by mass protests of disagreement over him and the way he was taking the country. But in reality, we know that Victoria Nuland had openly stated that America had invested $5 billion in the overthrow of the Ukrainian government under Eastern-leaning Viktor Yanukovych. This is very important. I want you all to hang with me. And I see what YouTube is doing. YouTube is disconnecting people. I understand that. We're going to overlook that because even if they disconnect you, you can come back later and re-listen to the video. But this is very important. I'm going to try to get as much as I can before I have to leave the parking lot, okay? It says, Moscow then also backed pro-Russian armed separatists in the Donbass region of eastern Ukraine. Now, I'm going to stop right there on that note. And I'm going to tell you that Medvedev said that an attack would ignite a Judgment Day response. So we ask ourselves, why hasn't that response happened? And what does it mean politically, geopolitically, and economically if Russia does not follow through on the promised Judgment Day response by former two-time prime minister and one-time president and now co-chair of the Russian Federation's National Security Council? What does that mean if they don't follow through on that? And why haven't they followed through on that? Well, there's a lot to this. Now, over the course of this so-called special military operation, Russia has been laying out red lines. And at every turn, the Western nations have sidestepped or overstepped the red lines, and they move further and further up the escalatory ladder to the war. Because after a couple incidents took place, the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the White House stated that they no longer fear retaliatory measures by Russia or escalatory measures by Russia. Why did they say that? Because every time Russia laid out a red line, America, the UK, and NATO jumped over the red line. And there was no massive response or a payday for those who ignored Russia's national security lines. And even right now, Russia still tiptoes around this. See, I like to get to the meat of things. I like to get to the crux of everything to show you why these things keep escalating. Russia does not want a war with America. Russia does not want a war with the Western world. As a matter of fact, some in the Russian government still believe and are still hoping that after this, regardless of the rhetoric that they're speaking, that they can still be accepted into the Western sphere of governance, that they can be looked at as an equal. While there's others who are saying, listen, to hell with that, let us move where our future lies, and that is to the east. All right. So now you've got political spheres bumping up against each other. And this is what has helped to mute the response, a major response from Russia to the West. Now, as I've often told you and will continue to tell you, that the empire knows only one language. It is not English. It is not French. It is not German. It is not Russian. It is not Chinese. The only language that the U.S. empire understands is the language of force and consequences. You understand? If you are not speaking the language of force and consequences, it goes in one ear and out the other to all of the political leaders and all of the military class. The only way that they pay attention is if you hit them where it hurts. If you press, excuse me, something popped up. If you press a nerve, if you hit them harder than they hit you, you can't hit them just as hard as they hit you. You must hit them harder, okay? Listen to what I'm saying to you all. Desperation is setting in. Why was this attack made today? Nearly 1 year since the warning from Dmitry Medvedev, the former president and former two-time prime minister and now co-chair of the Russian Federation's National Security Council. Why was that taken right now? Because there's so much at stake. Most people will leave out, and you probably haven't heard this on the alternative media. You probably haven't heard this on the mainstream media. So let me tell you something. Right now, we're going to Google this. And we go to something very significant taking place. Here it is right here. This is on RT. This was, as a matter of fact, this is 1 year today. Man, I didn't even realize that. As I'm talking to you, this is the anniversary. Since Medvedev made his comments last year. This is the 1 year anniversary. And let me see. Let me undo this. Let me go back here You guys give me a second. I just deleted something that I was trying to get to for you all. RT. Let's go here. Let me pull up this for you all. Go to search engine. This is what you can do to get to what I'm saying. Go to RT search engine. Go to RT.com. Go to the search engine. And then put in Russia, Africa. Those are the only two words you need to put in. Russia, Africa. Then you click on the first article that comes up. And listen what it says here. So this is very important that you understand. Russia will sign security agreements with African states, according to the media. The arrangements will reportedly be made during a summit in St. Petersburg on July 27th through July 28th. Russia will sign security agreements with African countries at a major summit in St. Petersburg later this month, according to TASS news agency. They reported on Sunday. Hold on one second, everybody. This is my daughter coming up to the car or whatever. You can give me the rest of it in a second. Just put that in. Put that in. Let me finish streaming. So listen. It goes and says this. The agreements cover cooperation in space, anti-terrorism measures, and security, economic, and humanitarian cooperation, the report said. It added that the countries would adopt a politician declaration, whatever that means. Listen what it goes on to say. The Russian-African Summit will be held on July 27th and 28th. While the exact number of participants have not been revealed, delegations from all 54 African countries will attend the first event. That attended the first event in 2019. That year, more than 40 heads of states arrived in Sochi. So now we see that almost all of the African nations will be in St. Petersburg around 10 days from now. 10 days from now. Buckle up, baby. Around 10 days from now. Now, what's significant about that? They are signing political, geopolitical, space, and military and security agreements with Russia, meaning that they will be afforded. This would almost be like a free trade agreement, also a military exchange agreement where Russia will be sending military groupings there to train, arm, and help stand up independent militaries in these African countries, help set up manufacturing factories there, help set up weapons manufacturing plants there. This just so happened to be reported the very day that the bombing takes place on the Kerch Strait or the Kerch Bridge connecting to Crimea. Don't lose sight of what I just told you. That 1 year ago today, the former two-time prime minister, one-time Russian president, and now co-chair of the Russian Federation's National Security Advisor, warned that an attack on Crimea would bring a Judgment Day response. Okay? America is trying to see if Vladimir Putin, if Medvedev, and if the political elite of Russia will live up to their words, because so far they have refused to meet the military of NATO and their provocations head on. So this stuff continues to escalate. If you do not pop them in the face, if you do not pop them in the nose, if you do not kick them in the shin, the groin, or whatever, they continue to escalate because they don't fear escalatory consequences. Okay? Now, let's go this is not only the one that I'm talking about. Now let's go here. Let's see if I can pull this one up. Listen to what this says. And then I'll put my seatbelt on and we'll drive away, and then I'll talk to you all. It says, in this article on Sputnik, it says, Ukraine's terror attack on Crimea Bridge, what's known so far. And on here it says, traffic was suspended on the Crimean Bridge overnight. I told you I got a alert last night that it happened last night. Due to an attack committed by Ukraine the Russian Foreign Ministry stated on Monday. The roadway of the bridge has sustained damage while the structures of the span remain on their supports, according to the Transport Ministry. 2 people died in the incident and a minor was injured. Now, let's stop right there for a minute. Why is Russia kidding itself? And why is the news, the Eastern news kidding itself? They're trying to make you believe because they don't want to escalate. Russia is trying everything that it can to not escalate, even though it may be to their detriment. But the scripture says that Gog and Magog would sally forth, and they would reduce the world to a veritable hell. And and one of them would come kicking and screaming. That's Russia. Russia is doing its best not to engage in a direct military conflict, but the Russian leadership does not understand the mentality of America and the American elite. They think they do, but they don't. I live in America. I'm a descendant of ex-slaves. I understand the mentality of those in power. The main thing is that they want to maintain their position, their wealth, their power, their standing globally, and they are willing to risk not just the lives of a few soldiers, they are willing to risk the lives of the entire population of the planet Earth. So whether Russia likes it or not, they're going to have to respond because the world is watching. Listen to me good. The world is watching. Russia has announced that they were going to meet with these 40 to 54 African nations, sign security agreements, trade agreements, economic agreements, investment agreements, right? Now, if you were to sign a security agreement with me, and I'm saying that you are allowing America to overstep your bounds, and you're allowing NATO to continue to overstep its bounds, and that you are willing to continue to take it on the chin to prevent World War III, when America, the UK, and NATO continue to ignore every national security concern that you have, and even have phrased the thing as you are being aggressive against Ukraine, and that this was not justified in any way, shape, or form, even though America had been pumping Ukraine with weapons and money and training for over a decade and a half. If you don't understand that they will never stop, they will pause, but they will never stop coming after you. Why? Because you are a threat to their agenda. You are a threat to their wealth. You are a threat to the parasitic system, because they're looking at Russia as a prize. If we can break Russia, if we can beat down Russia, if we can balkanize Russia, the spoils go to the victors of war. Russia has huge amounts of resources, and the parasitic system of the West needs to continue to latch on and get these resources for pennies on the dollar or free, so that they can continue their way of life. They can continue exercising their authority, their position, right? If Russia does not finally get that in their head, Russia will be lost. You understand what I'm saying? Russia will be lost if they don't understand that these people, they play for keeps. They play for keeps. And if I was an African nation and I'm watching how Russia is dealing with America and NATO and the Western world, and how they continue to overstep the bounds and all international acceptable norms, and they step over every red line up to every red line, I'm gonna do a second thought on whether I want to sign a security agreement with you, and then I'm gonna start thinking about, well, maybe I can hold off for a little bit and just benefit from both sides, the East and the West, because if I get in this security agreement with Russia, how can I expect Russia to help me out militarily when Russia is allowing the United States to spit in his face? When Russia is allowing NATO to continue to slap its people? The longer this goes on, and the longest the longer America is allowed to do these things without feeling repercussions at home. Remember what Lindsey Graham says? We're pumping money, and I'm paraphrasing, he was talking about pumping money into Ukraine, training Ukraine soldiers, giving Ukraine soldiers weapons and armaments to fight Russia, and little to no dead Americans. He said, this is the best investment we have. If the Russian officials don't get that in their mind, Russia's finished. If they don't get it in their mind, they better recognize, see, there's a saying. I often say this to y'all, what my sister says to me. She used to say this when I was a little child. She said it up when I became a teenager and even as an adult. She says, when a person shows you who they are, believe them. America continues to show her. The UK continues to show her. NATO nations continue to show Russia, and yet Russia is still trying to be friends with them, still selling them oil and gas and all kind of products, and still in trade with them, and still trying to get some of their banks back on a system of SWIFT when they know that the system is bankrupt. It's insane. And the people should call the leadership to account. Just like I say that the people of America should call the American leadership to account. The people of Russia should call the leadership of Russia to account if they continue to try to reintegrate into a bankrupt banking system. They continue to skate around the issues of soldiers dying at the behest of American weapons and covert military advisors in Ukraine, and do little to nothing. Those leaders are proving themselves not worthy of the leadership of Russia. Because your ultimate goal as a president, as a prime minister, as a leader of a people or a leader of a government is to protect the people and the sovereignty and the territorial integrity and the national security of that nation. Is that not right? Now listen, we talk about the African nations and how they are about to sign a security and trade agreement, and they're looking at Russia now, and they're like, maybe we shouldn't get so deep in bed with Russia, because Russia, this is the largest nuclear power on the planet. It has one of the best fighting machines on the planet. It has the second most powerful military and industrial complex on the planet, second only to the Chinese. I know some of you thought I was going to say to America. No, Russia right now is outproducing all of the Western nations combined in military, artillery, armament, missiles, everything. They are outproducing everybody, the United States, the UK, and all of the NATO nations. They're second only to China. And yet they allow for this disrespect. They allow for America and the UK to carry out covert operations. And Russia knows this. Russia, listen to me good. The leadership of Russia they're not foolish. They understand who's carrying out these actions. Now I want to ask everybody who's listening. Let's use common sense for a minute. I want to ask everybody who's listening. Let me see something real quick. Okay, we're back in. Oh, and please hit the like button. Please hit the like button while we're talking. But I want to ask you something. I asked this in an earlier video. If I arm somebody, say we're all in the same neighborhood, and I caused a beef with you and your cousin, right? Because Russia and Ukrainians are pretty much the same. And I know some Ukrainians don't like to hear that, but it is the truth. Now listen, say for instance, I caused a division between you and your cousins, and they live right next door to you, but I live in the city over, right? And I'm constantly bombarding your cousin's house with propaganda, okay? And then I'm giving your cousin the whereabouts of everybody that's in your house at all times. I'm arming them, I'm training them, I'm funding them, right? And someone goes, your daughter goes and gets in your car, drives the car to the grocery store, and the car blows up, right? Is your cousin the only one at fault? What would the court of law say in America? I'm asking you this because we have to apply these same metrics to geopolitics. If I did that and your cousin put a bomb under your car and it blew up your daughter, is it just your cousin at fault? The U.S. court system says that, yeah, the person that put the bomb there, they will be held responsible, but they didn't plan, they didn't organize, they didn't fund, and they didn't provide the weaponry for that to happen. There's somebody behind the scene that is more at fault, and they will go after that person more than they will go after the one that put the bomb under the car. Is that not right? So why is Russia saying a terrorist attack by Ukraine when we all know that that probably was a SAS operation or a special operation by one of the United States Special Forces or something like that? They may have had some Ukrainians embedded for plausible deniability, but in all actuality, America has stated that that was their goal, to blow up that bridge. Newland said it. What is the National Security Advisor said it. Blinken said it. Joe Biden alluded to it, right? And other U.S. officials, specifically and especially Lindsey Graham, said it. So how is it that Russia is just going to blame Ukraine when all actuality and in reality, we know that this was a U.S. plan from the start? And if we know that it was a U.S. plan and a U.S. operation, and the pun was Ukraine, then how can we blame? We can just blame Ukraine. Hold on 1 second. Let me mute my mic 1 second. I got to ask my daughter something 1 second. Let me see. So I'm sorry, everybody, for listening. Out of here. Yeah, get a few things, maybe about 10 things, something like that. I'm sorry, everybody, but hey, I'm a family man, and my family take precedence. But think about that. If I armed, trained, financed, and did everything, what would you call the person that put the bomb under the car? A patsy, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? And they're still talking about patsies, the patsy that supposedly killed JFK, right? They're talking about how patsies were often used throughout history by the British and the U.S. to further their goals. Well, we can say that the leadership or the special forces or the so-called SBU of the intelligence service of Ukraine, they were patsies for NATO's design and plan, because they openly said that they wanted to bring Russia to its knees, to bleed the Russian Federation, right? So common sense tells me that you don't get justice by just handling the patsy. Common sense tells me to get justice, you go to the root cause, right? You handle the patsy, but you handle the root cause. Is that not right? Man, let me tell you something. It is unreal how they are doing their best not to confront the Russian Federation, the U.S. Now, I'm gonna finish reading part of this article, so stay with me. The terror attack on the Crimean Bridge overnight on Monday had been preceded by a flurry of attempts to strike the critical infrastructure that has long been an eyesore for the Kyiv regime. Now, it says Ukraine's authority made an unsuccessful attempt to hit the targets on Russian territory with an S-200. Now, stop right there. I'm not going to even go further with that. Check it. Well, if you knew that, why didn't you bring it to a head? Other people had to die or get injured for this. Why would you not bring this to a head? Because if you continue to allow this to go on like this, festering and boiling over, then you become a party to the crime also. You understand? So the Russian leadership, instead of talking and issuing threats, should make it known. The only way to make it known to the West that this is a no-no, and any other move like this will be met. Now, let me tell you a possible response. Okay? This is what I would do. I'm not advocating violence. This is what I would do. A bridge for a bridge. So you struck the Kerch Bridge, I'll strike a bridge in NATO territory. You bomb one of our regions, I'll bomb a region in one of NATO's territories. And when you start being getting on this holier than thou, how dare you strike NATO territory? I'll say, how dare you strike Russian territory? And the more you escalate, the more I escalate. You strike one bridge, I strike 3 bridges. You strike one apartment building, I strike 3 apartment buildings. And I can guarantee you that if this happens, guess what happens? All of this craziness of striking targets inside the Russian Federation would immediately die down. If there's a drone strike in Moscow, there'll be a drone strike in London, Paris, Berlin, Washington, D.C., everywhere, Brussels, everywhere. If there's a train derailing in the Russian Federation, in every NATO nation, they will have one in one of theirs, or 2 of them in theirs. If there's a factory that is blown up, then you have to lose 3 of yours in at least 3 territories. I would not just allow this to take place on my territory. Hell, you bringing a fight to me. So instead of me always being on the defensive, then guess what? I go on the offense. And I'm going to show you how it feels. And when you don't like that feeling, as soon as I hit you back, and then you show me that, hey, this is unacceptable, I would not say that we didn't have any part in it. I would say, well, the Western leaders need to understand that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And from this point on, every time Russian territory is struck, we will strike out. If the war cannot stay in this enclosed environment on Ukrainian territory, it cannot just expand into Russian territory. There are a lot of surrounding nations. Therefore, they too must feel the brunt of it too. If we have to feel it, hell, we are a superpower. We're not beneath America and NATO. And I guarantee you, those drone strikes will ease up. I guarantee those, and just like when the Moskva, I think that's what it's called, the Moskva was sunken by a Western missile. Had that been me, my leadership, immediately 2 Western warships would have been sunk. They would have been sunk. At least. Because the only way to stop this thing from escalating to a thermonuclear war is justice. And if I can't have justice, if you're not going to give me justice, then I'm going to take justice. Right? I'm going to get justice, because that is the inherent right of every human being on the face of God's earth, to receive justice. Right? And we can't just say that the West is entitled to justice, and the West is entitled to be safe, when you are the one who is creating instability and death and destruction across the planet Earth. That's not how this is going to work. If you hurt me, I'm hurting you. If you try to hurt my loved ones, I'm going to defend them like hell. And this will kill, and some of this move towards open conflict. Because look at the situation. America already doesn't have ammo. She's already out of ammo. The whole of the Western NATO terrorist bloc, they're out of ammo. They're out of everything. So how can you prosecute a war with me when you don't have the means to do it? So to nip this in the bud, you hit them where it hurts. That's how things work, right? So there was something else I wanted to share with you on this matter. Let's see. Let's see if I can pull this up real quick. So also, as I told you about the African Nation Security Bloc. Now remember that the BRICS are meeting in August. The BRICS are meeting in August to formulate an economic and political policy outside of the Western directive. So now we have the Africans, the entire continent almost, meeting with Russia on the 27th and the 28th of this month, all right? And then we have the BRICS meeting coming right after that, right? And now we have this. No more security guarantees for Black Sea navigation, Russian foreign minister. Moscow announced on Monday it wouldn't extend the Ukraine grain deal over alleged non-compliance by other parties. Now, a lot of people are mad about this because they were making a lot of under-the-table money by covertly shipping weapons in the shipments of grain and food, and they were also, pirating the money, the grain, and selling it and warehousing it and doubling and quadrupling the prices of this stuff, right? A lot of that. But now with this dead, this has aggravated a lot of people. So they're striking out. Because listen, something to this right here that you have to pay close attention to. That just a few days ago, Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, right, tried to bribe the Russian Federation to continue the grain deal. How? By saying that if you allow us to keep the grain deal going, then we will finally uphold our end of the grain deal, and the Western nations will finally uphold our end of the grain deal by reinstating some of Russia's banks to the SWIFT system. And when Russia refuses that, boom, the Kerch Bridge. These things don't happen in isolation. You understand? You understand? Because so many people, the weapons runners were making money. The weapons manufacturers were making money. NATO nations were making money. Turkey was making money. Ukraine was getting an outlet to get more advanced weapons smuggled to them through shipments of grain. Right? And the Turkish military was making money because they were charged with protecting the shipments coming out of Ukraine. Isn't that something? So when this gets canceled, on the very day, remember that Vladimir Putin announced Friday that the world would have his decision by Monday on the grain deal. July 17th, today, he announced that there will be no more extension of that grain deal. July 16th, but being reported July 17th, boom, the attack on the bridge in Crimea. You think that's a coincidence? You think this happens at the same time that the grain deal cancellation takes place, the announcement of the African nations meeting with Russia, the reinforcement of the BRICS meeting coming in August, and then the upcoming meeting between Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping? You think all of that is a coincidence? If you do, I have a bridge to sell you, and all I'm asking for is $1 million. And this bridge is like a 20-mile bridge, and all you have to do is add water, and it'll pop up everywhere you need it. I mean, that's absolutely, for you to believe that none of this plays into the attack on the bridge, you've got to be crazy. Now, with that said, will Russia keep its word? Judgment Day response. Vladimir Putin Second in command, Dmitry Medvedev said there would be a Judgment Day response, and he said it July 17th, 2022. July 17th, 2022. And the bridge was struck on the anniversary of the day that Dmitry Medvedev warned the US, the UK, NATO, and Ukraine. If you don't think that's symbolic, you tell me what is symbolic. If you don't believe that that was planned for a multiplier of effects, I don't know what to tell you all. I don't know what to tell you. Now, what we can do now is wait for Russia's response, if there is a response, and how strong a response that will be. And when we get that response, you'll get my response. Now, I'm going to go out the same way I always come in, with love and peace in my heart for you all. Thank you for joining me for this short edition, this short live stream of the Red Pill Diaries. I love you, but know that the true and living God will always love you better. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. Hit the like button. Tell everybody to subscribe. I love you. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody.